on the gurney in the ER, I lazily listen. If I do that, I will be in space in no time. Not a single tunnel or anything was found. Everything was filled with enthusiasm and love. Discomfort, confusion, and non-identity disappeared. Yanceyville, North Carolina is the hometown of David Williamson. As a kid, I thought the 3,000-person town of Yanceyville was just like Huckleberry Finn. Nature and woodlands have always been my climbing grounds. As a child, I had wonderful experiences that made me think life was great. I was enthralled with the process of digging for fossils. Even shards of glass seemed like priceless artifacts to me at the time. There is beauty in North Carolina, even though my hometown, Caswell County, is among the nation's poorest. Racism is pervasive. One of the nation's greatest levels of KKK participation is still maintained there. Sharecroppers, my uncles spent their childhood on the farm of my biological grandfather. When you put it all together, you get people that are traumatized and have unresolved cases. People around you are repeating the same hate speech they've heard from white people. All through our lives, we've heard the phrase, they're this way or they're that way. Main Thoroughfare is the busiest thoroughfare in town, and I've witnessed the Klan marching along it multiple times. People's anguish and fury have been witnessed firsthand. My mother and aunts are in pain and fury, and I can feel it. It impacts me. It reinforces your negative beliefs and makes you furious. You fail to see the logic in your oversimplified assumptions about white people. I have a very distinct memory of attending Graves Chapel Church's preschool. One white educator was Miss Mueller. During story time, she embraced me and showed her affection. Other white people were concerned and tried to assist me. You miss out on the good stuff and pay more attention to the bad when you keep worrying about recycling. Their negativity serves to bolster your narrative. Outliers don't matter in the slightest, because you can only perceive evidence that backs up your story. Your experiences simply lend credence to your preconceived notions. To be mistaken is something you cannot fathom. The chasm is real. They do it if there is a discrepancy. That disparity became a terrifying monster that I couldn't shake. War and conflict were always things I got ready for. Hypertension is inevitable when one lives in constant anticipation of someone saying anything offensive so they may unleash 400 years of rage. It is painful to be there all the time. I was the victim of nothing nice. Felt terrible. I hated college. I felt justified in my anger and hatred, yet I was on a spiritual quest to understand. Deities gave their blessing to it. The gods of wrath are real. I could find spiritual and philosophical justifications for my hatred and embrace them as truth. Regarding my spiritual and philosophical well-being, I did not find that hating was dysfunctional or destructive. Forget about the times when my physical being begged me to stop hating. Someone felt it. For whatever reason, I was never comfortable and couldn't eat. There were moments when I just quit eating because I couldn't handle the stress. That was the end of my digestive system. I was suffering from hypertension that had to be treated. On rare occasions, I took my blood pressure reading and saw that it was 224 over 190. I disregarded the signals my body was sending me throughout the day. In every way, her stern demeanor and sense of self as the one who would rectify racial inequality were confirmed. In that moment, I felt like I was the Black Messiah who would rescue us all. On February 1, 2021, while I sat in my garage with two friends, I experienced this pain. And initially, I did not experience any chest pain. I had a sudden, excruciating pain in the area below my heart, as if my shoulder were ready to give way. My 7 ruptured discs, 2 torn and 2 bulging, made back pain a common occurrence. But there was no heart in that anguish. Angry at my friend, I said, "Man, this back pain just shifted gears." In response, when I felt a sting or tickle after work, I realized something wasn't right. I pondered whether it would pass while seated in my vehicle. I got to a point of stability while sitting there that allowed me to ride it out until I got home. The fluttering, stinging, and other symptoms persisted after getting home in the car. Now I can feel it deep within, telling my son's home-based worker, Mother Trish, "I believe I need to go to the emergency room." I dial her number. There has been no improvement. In fact, things are becoming worse. In this vehicle, I am finding it difficult to breathe. Suffocation has set in. Breathing deeply helps me remain vigilant. Getting to the emergency room is making me lightheaded. I doze off as soon as they roll me onto the gurney. People assume you're delusional, so I'll never forget this. Despite the fact that I blacked out just outside the treatment room, looking at the bed makes me wonder if I'm alive. but all I can see are people. The dots look like a starry sky. I could comprehend the events unfolding before me while in that trance state, but I was unable to articulate them to my waking mind. Upon observing the darkness and dots corresponding to the individuals, I perceived myself peering down from a height. Its arrangement caught my eye. Folks, I beheld them. I could make out everyone, including a woman in the corner, even though they remained where they had been when they shoved me in. As I was passing away, she clutched my face in a display of apparent grief. After leaving my body, that was a major concern of mine. Pondered, what on earth is causing her to be sad? This is very stunning. Wow, this is just ideal. I am not in pain. I understand. I am living, whereas that man is dead. What a stunning piece. I can now rule out the possibility of a hallucination. Leaving the body, I discovered. Upon opening my eyes, I found that everything that had been happening to me up to that point had persisted. No matter if I was inside or outside of my body, my consciousness remained constant. There was a constant stream of experience. Looking down taught me a lot after I left my body. He passed away. He has passed away. We have lost our minds. Dead is the ego. Inquired, what remains? For what am I? A sonic flood of light, energy, spirit, consciousness, soul, and spirit poured in. A choir rather than a mechanical line, it was a cacophony of syllables, feeling like I was just describing things to myself. It was all energy. I was embraced, and it all felt like love. I sensed a deep bond. Everything I saw and asked about made perfect sense to me right away. I understood after that. I was all, what's that? Like a baby who says ah to everything. My expression was one of pure astonishment as I hopped from one thing to another. Everyone forgot about the human experience I had mentioned. The absence of cognition was replaced by the rapid assimilation of what was being observed by awareness. So I'm keeping tabs on everything. As a result of my passing, I noticed the lady sobbing uncontrollably. After a while, I take notice and glance up nonchalantly. Quickly, I'm in space. Absent tunnel, nil. Upon first glance, I perceived the light. It was on the upper right side of the chamber, with the emergency room on the lower left. From that vantage point, I gazed into space. Looking down into the vacuum, I could make out the star-forming zone. Like velvet, the night enveloped me. Love, a sentiment. Every aspect of that disembodied experience was reminiscent of love. As in love, I was an integral component of my system, which was love. But it seemed like everything, every possibility, every memory, everything fit into the abyssal blackness. My investigation was reacted to by it. In an instant, all unfinished business was taken care of. The joy of possessing it was experienced prior to any loss of it. A woman I was chatting with once commented, I don't want to just magically forget people I love in this life. I made an effort to clarify that this was just a concept originating in a living, thinking brain. A person's memories and humanity are extinguished the moment they pass away. You have absorbed the energy that is associated with this event. Everything is there. This experience is limitless in every way. It remains ever present and accessible. To make sure nothing is overlooked, more connected to the system external to the body than internal. We are all interconnected nodes, and our unique perspectives are what make this system work, creating a possibility that will last forever. Learning is an ongoing process. Since I was curious about everything in space, I tried to look at every possible location. I nearly decided to entertain the idea as I gazed at the light. Gave a quick glance upwards before entering the emergency room. I transformed into a glowing sphere when my attention shifted from the right angle to the left. Being that radiant orb made me feel more vital than before. I experienced a profound sense of oneness with the universe during that stage. My pain, my bewilderment, my identity. It had all vanished. Luminous beings, we are. Those corpses, no. The dummy of light seemed ideal to me. It was clear and not slanted to favor one side. It appeared to be unrelated to real life. Oh, you were living inside that body. Oh no, the corpse is lifeless. Rather than, oh, you were a black activist and you need to go back and hop in that body and get to the fight. Conflict has ended. Those altercations occurred. Basically kept an eye on everything. Saw the defibrillation procedure. The image of the distraught woman, holding her face, haunts me to this day. It was disheartening that my attempts to communicate with her were unsuccessful. No, don't be sad, wasn't something I said. Oh, how lovely. Nothing is harming my back. What's happening is crystal clear to me. Oh, how lovely. My sense of vitality has never been higher than this. I worked with several robotic coworkers in resuscitation. Functioning as expected, they were emotionally detached, and it was obvious to me. On the other hand, a solitary figure was navigating it at an angle in front of them. He didn't want to feel obligated to keep me alive. He preferred to avoid such emotions. Resisting that accusation was important to him. When I regained consciousness, I asked, "Are you okay?" I raised an eyebrow at the individual to my right and asked, "Are you okay?" while still searching for the woman. "No, you okay?" He interrupted me. Among the right-wingers, someone inquired, "You didn't feel that?" Defibrillator pads were replaced with a rubber pad, and I nearly exclaimed, "Feel what?" upon looking down. As I beheld the indentation made by the defibrillator pad, the thought crossed my mind, "Oh, you really were dead." My world crumbled at that moment. As I recalled seeing it from above, I beheld the defibrillation pad. All of a sudden, it clicked when I glanced down. His question was, "You didn't feel that?" I didn't feel anything. My death was painless and trauma-free. I got numb to death because the anguish of walking to the hospital to catch my breath was equal to the pain of dying. My near-death experience made me very sensitive to the anguish and bewilderment that other people go through. I felt a 5,000-fold increase in empathy when I got back. Due to my inability to relax and recuperate, my heightened awareness hindered my integration efforts. When I finally got to my feet, I got back to work. I noticed a change. I started engaging in a different way and saw better results once I quit playing politics. My performance and decisions were unaffected by my identity problems. Some tasks appeared to be easier than others. Nothing to do with race or politics. Everything to do with performance. My burden, fury, and hatred dissipated. There was a marked improvement in the manners and treatment I received. Apparently, I was unimpeded. I was no longer impacted by those tales. I felt totally responsible for everything, even my ideas after that experience. At times, we fool ourselves into thinking we're being good just because we remain silent. "I didn't call you that, I informed you, but you claimed otherwise." That thought intensified the pressure. We need to be knowledgeable when making these choices. Holding on to negativity, whether it's pain, uncertainty, or tension, does more harm than good. Avoid internalizing bias by addressing it when you feel it. What I've realized is that rather than just experiencing and moving past our emotions, we actually become them. Instead of selecting to reply when I detected a hostile concept, I became hateful. We disregard the physiological effects of hatred. How did it affect you personally? Is this person depressed? Must I take what they say to heart? No. Any invitation will do when you're biased and anxious. I was slain by my own wrath, even though yours is reasonable. It was within my power to make a difference, but I reacted emotionally and responsible rather than aggressively because I failed to grasp the bigger picture. I am becoming increasingly aware of how that pain damaged my body and made me ill the further away I am from it. The only way to detach myself from those stories and narratives, I suppose, was to start over and shake them off. The lessons I've learned have given me new perspective, and going forward, I can do things differently. Even if the opportunity is there, I am free to reject it if I so want. Go back to the moments that took your life. Yes, I do. Again, I am filled with frustration and despair. Am I going to decide to remain in that emotion? I ask myself now, will I sink into despair? Am I going to go into a rage? Is hatred going to consume me? Yes, I'll think about it, give it time to happen, and then step back. Just let it go and go on to the next option or concept. What makes an experience good or bad depends on how we choose to describe it. You are not obligated to select them. They are merely stories. You bring everything you need, but we don't often learn to appreciate that. Everything about us, our name, our significance, the people we should like and dislike, and even our thought processes, are dictated to us. We hear all this, and yet we still want people to grow into fully realized human beings without ever having to make a choice. Those who love them imposed a predetermined identity on them, and they have no choice but to accept it. Because it served them well, they love you and would like you to think this way as well. Your safety is their first priority. To no avail, take stock of our environment. Our perspective on life, the earth, and one another is incorrect. I am coming to see that the soul is flawless as I gain knowledge about the human condition. The mind, the body, the ego, and the boundless spirit that leads this world. It fades away with time. but the effects of trauma and other things on humans are permanent. You go and it does. Then you are that. Focusing on the here and now allows us to shape our future selves. We have the power to transform if we take charge of our focus and refuse to allow other software to manipulate or hijack it. It gets worse when you dwell on pain. A positive outlook improves one's chances of seizing opportunities despite setbacks. Improving our ability to concentrate will allow us to be more imaginative. Imagine the potential output of 20,000, 30,000, or 1 million